Bore da, good morning. Gai ddiolch am y cyfle i anerch y gynhadledd ar ran Comisiynydd Cenedlaethau'r Dyfodol Cymru, Sophie Howe, ac ymddieriadau nad yw'r Comisiynydd yma'n bersonol. Galla fe sicrhau chi bod hi'n gefnogol ac yn awyddus i fod yma, ond felly mai. I'll translate on behalf of the translator who's not here. Can I thank you for the opportunity to address the conference this morning on behalf of the Future Generations Commissioner for Wales, Sophie Howe. She unfortunately can't be with us this morning. She's tied up in a particular course, but she's very supportive and very grateful for the opportunity to raise some questions and some thoughts on behalf of the Commissioner. I want you all to think of one place in Wales: a rural countryside, a battered shoreline, a vibrant forest, a windy moor, or simply an overgrown garden. These are your magical places, your secret gardens, your forbidden forests. You fell in love with them, you fell into them, you've probably fallen out with them too. Imagine for a moment you're 20 years older, 30, 40 years perhaps, and those locations are not there anymore. They're distant memories confined to postcards or fictional books. You'll have to try and explain to a future generation that a native tree used to be there, or a specific species once lived there. The environment is something real. It's not something that should be left to the imagination. The what-ifs or could-have-beens will simply not do. We need a conversation about anyone get this wrong? We need a conversation about conservation. You try that over the break. We need a conversation about I can't do it now. You know what I'm saying. We're not doing enough. We're not doing it fast enough. We're not being brave enough in securing our natural environments. This short speech will address why we need an environment for future generations, why we need to preserve it, and what our role is in ensuring it remains diverse and real. I look forward to hearing more, in particular from Public Health Wales, in how our natural environments here in Wales can be seen as an invaluable resource for our health and well-being as we face challenges to our peoples and planet. We're in Wales, and I just couldn't resist not sharing my favourite poem. His message is a necessary reminder. In his poem, Remembrance, or Cofio in Welsh, Waldo Williams wrote, "One fleeting moment as the sun is setting, one gentle moment as the night falls fast, to bring to mind the things that are forgotten, now scattered in the dust of ages past." And concludes, "O earth's innumerable generations, their sacred dreams and fragile sanctity, is the heart silent that was once acquainted with sadness and with gladness and with glee. Often, at close of day, when I am lonely, I long to know you all, bring all to mind. Is there a heart or memory still to cherish the old forgotten things of humankind?" Although written in the 1930s in the context of a changing modern world, Williams's poem perhaps resonates now more than ever in lamenting the loss of Wales's natural landscapes. He foreshadows a darker world being left behind for future generations. For centuries, Wales's natural landscape has gone beyond the words of poetry and has helped shape our national consciousness. This sense of place has formed the backbone of our national identity, and this connection has played a vital role in how we and others see Wales and our place in the world. It's why, personally, I favour Bryn Brialli and not Donkey's Patch, or Llyn Bochlwyd and not Lake Australia, Foel Fawr and not Jampot Hill. Our places and their place names make us who we are today. Like the rest of the UK, Wales is seeing a rapid decline in our biodiversity. New figures released today by the Welsh Government, and I can say it now because it's past 9:30, the embargo has now been lifted, is a harsh reminder that we're not doing enough or fast enough. The 2016 State of Natural Resources report, published by Natural Resources Wales, provided shocking proof of Wales's widespread biodiversity loss. It highlighted the lack of resilience within our ecosystems, and it showed just how unadaptable we are as a nation when it comes to the effects of climate change. It is almost certain now that the international target of halting biodiversity loss by 2020 won't be met. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation report says that every year at least 8 million tonnes of plastic leak into the ocean, which is equivalent to dumping the contents of one garbage truck into the ocean every minute. If no action is taken, this is expected to increase to 2 per minute by 2030 and 4 per minute by 2050. In a business-as-usual scenario, the ocean is expected to contain 1 tonne of plastic for every 3 tonnes of fish by 2025, and by 2050, more plastics than fish. And these grim statistics are symptomatic of many other pressing issues in Wales. It is, as Naomi Klein writes in her book, No Is Not Enough, the way of life that is leading to both climatic and economic destabilisation is creating other crises as well. It's giving rise to an epidemic of anxiety and despair, expressed through everything from rising prescription drug dependence to high suicide rates, from road rage to screen addiction. As we currently stand, 58% of the Welsh population are obese. 1 in 3 families are living in fuel poverty, with this being a particular issue for rural communities. Mental health issues, particularly in children and young people, are increasing. Throughout Wales, the social and economic divide is at risk of widening as levels of child poverty continue to rise. We are storing up a multitude of intergenerational problems for our future generations without securing sustainable and resilient public services to deal with them. If we think about what conservation means and the definitions focus on preservation, protection, prevention and restoration, at its heart it is about taking account of future generations. It's saying that we have no more of a right to our natural resources or to our planet as we enjoy it today than those who are yet to be born. What do we really mean when we talk about the well-being of future generations, and why does it matter to us? The thinking with this act goes back to the philosophical underpinning of what sustainable development is all about. How can we ensure that those who are not even been born yet are not left behind, that they are not at a disadvantage before they even come into existence? It is not merely enough to guarantee the best start in life regardless of where a child is born, as important and unresolved as an issue that still is. It must also apply to when they are born. Why should a child born tomorrow face disadvantages and prejudice in terms of policy and decision-making? Future generations will grow up in a world amidst mass extinction, what theorist Rob Nixon calls slow violence. A clean, vibrant planet is the birthright of all living beings. That is why we have things like World Heritage Sites. They belong to the world, regardless of when you happen to live in it. But these places are dying on our watch. And we must do more today to guarantee they exist for tomorrow. And that is why I'm proud of the steps Wales has taken, and I'm excited to assist Wales's first Future Generations Commissioner in promoting the Sustainable Development Principle and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, a world first in legislating for future generations. The pioneering legislation is here to not only bring sustainable development to the table, but to put it at the heart of how we deliver services in Wales, telling public bodies that business as usual is no longer an option. The Act places a legal duty on 44 public bodies in Wales, including the Welsh Government and Natural Resources Wales, to ensure they are not taking decisions today which prevent future generations from being able to meet their own needs. It requires public bodies to plan for the long term, seeking to prevent problems before they occur or worsen, ensuring they are taking an integrated approach to well-being, collaborating with the right partners and involving those who are affected by the decisions they make. And the uniqueness of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act lies in its broad and holistic definition of sustainable development, defined as improving the way we achieve our economic, social, environmental and cultural well-being. The Wellbeing of Future Generations Act is pioneering in the way it allows for both the economy and our ecology to prosper. It is why the Commission intervened just over a year ago on the work surrounding large-scale infrastructure projects, such as the proposed expansion of the M4. I hope you saw our transport report launched last week on transport fit for future generations. It has been praised by several environmental groups for the recognition it places on the environment. In the report, the Commission has stressed that we cannot be talking about proposals which only focus on economic gain, without contemplating the huge impacts on biodiversity. The Commission has been extremely vocal in questioning whether spending billions of pounds on more grey infrastructure, such as roads, is really the best way of investing in our future generations. This is where the legal definitions contained within the Act are interesting, and I'd recommend having a look at our office's website for the wording if anyone's particularly interested in the technicalities of the legislation. For example, the Act's definition of a prosperous Wales is not in conflict with our decarbonisation targets. Our definition puts low carbon front and centre of the economy we need to be developing here in Wales. An innovative, productive and low carbon society which recognises the limits of the global environment and therefore uses resources efficiently and proportionately, including acting on climate change, and which develops a skilled and well-educated population in an economy which generates wealth and provides employment opportunities. And that is another strength of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, the way it is designed to integrate with other policies and pieces of legislation, such as the Environment Act and the Active Travel Act, to deliver upon Wales's commitments to decarbonisation along with other environmental commitments. It's absolutely vital that public bodies in Wales are looking at this in an integrated way. For example, there is significant evidence from the recent wellbeing assessments carried out by public bodies in Wales as part of their duties under the Act that demonstrate the links between air pollution from congestion, transport and energy usage and poorer health quality. Those who live in areas with poorer air quality were also more likely to live in deprivation. Some of our most deprived communities here in Wales are those that were former industrial towns and cities. For these families, the negative impacts of resilience on fossil fuel industries can be seen environmentally, economically, in terms of health and life expectancy, as well as culturally, as many of the former prosperous high streets lie empty and desolate, offering no local employment opportunities for change. The legacy of our nation's love affair with carbon continues to run generations deep. A recent large-scale study in the UK showed a 29.7% lower mortality rate in areas with higher concentrations of green space compared to those with low concentrations. This shows the way we have thought about infrastructure planning. Our approach to transport and how we have constructed our society in the past is having effects now and for the future. We know how vital this is for our future generations, yet disappointingly getting down to the detail of how public bodies are going to tackle these issues has proved harder to decipher so far from the wellbeing objectives. From our analysis, there are 54 total objectives relating broadly to the environment, and this includes the Welsh Government. In particular, there are 23 set by local authorities and also 23 set by public services boards. You will hear more within the next 6 weeks from the Commission on our approach to monitoring and assessing how public bodies will be doing this. There's clearly a lot of work to be done on drilling down into the specifics. There has been a feeling that the goal of a more resilient Wales in particular is one of the least understood by public bodies. So building on that feedback, we've sought to provide some assistance. One of the major projects the Commission and their office are working on at the moment is something called Art of the Possible. This is a programme to help public bodies make the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act a reality by highlighting the good work that is already improving well-being for people across Wales. This is working in partnership with several organisations from across all sectors in Wales, working together to develop and give practical encouragement, support and tools to public bodies to challenge business as usual and work towards a Wales we want. An example of these simple changes that the Office will be launching later in the autumn has come from Natural Resources Wales. You may well have already seen an explanatory video on our website. The project shows how simply by stopping cutting the grass at the NRW offices, their offices are now surrounded by orchids and wildflowers, a variety of species of butterflies, bumblebees, as well as other wildlife. This project, of course, has not only saved money, but has improved staff well-being by offering a green space to work or eat lunch in. These simple changes are quick, easy and painless, mobilise and involve people and align the agendas of different organisations or departments. The kind of integration the Act demands of us all. There is real opportunity within this Act to question business as usual. Our office have been involved in public sector procurement, helping to redraft the Planning Policy Wales, the Welsh Transport Appraisal Guidance, helping health boards with their corporate plans, advocating social and green prescribing, as well as recommending that the £1 billion of pension funds of Welsh local authority workers currently invested in fossil fuels is divested. And you can find more in our annual report that was launched this week on the other impacts of the Act. When we consider the fact that in Wales today around 84% of our land area is dedicated to agricultural use and collectively our national parks, natural reserves and areas of outstanding beauty are worth £9 billion to the Welsh economy every year, how can we maximise this for improving the well-being and lives of our people here in Wales? How can we get children and young people interested, engaged and connected with their natural environments, lessening obesity rates and the future dependence on our national health services? How can we utilise green spaces to help tackle the mental health epidemic among our younger generations? How can we use green infrastructure and active travel to encourage a modal shift away from cars, ensuring we are all breathing cleaner air? How can the conservation of our natural landscapes help preserve Wales's national heritage, promote our Welsh language, ensure our conversation around conservation, is one that diverse and reflective of the different cultures that call Wales home. The Act places an obligation on public bodies to think innovatively about these questions and act sustainably. In her Journey So Far report, the Commissioner was clear on how she's looking to public bodies to see how they are delivering now, on the objectives they set. It's time now to show they are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And there is no better time to seize on public interest in these issues. You only have to look at the current conversation on plastics to see just how quickly public discourse around an issue can change. For perhaps the first time, the public puts environmental considerations around plastic waste above the price of goods when shopping. The research carried out by ThoughtWorks found that 62% of the 2,000 people surveyed were concerned with the need to reduce plastic packaging and use materials which were recyclable, while 57% said price would be a main driver for the purchases in the next 10 years. It's time to put biodiversity loss and the natural environment at the heart of our decision-making. It's time for public bodies to take risks, to be bold, ambitious and forward-looking. A turtle can live for 100 years, but only moves forward if it sticks its head out. Public bodies have to do just that. And you have to actively work to challenge them too. So be like turtles and stick your head out, because you just don't know where the current will take you. Diolch, thank you.